sure what I'm ready for. So that means those guys can hear us, right?
Everybody can hear us once he turns the mics on.
And he just gave a thumbs up.
I can hear you.
Yep, I think we're going now.
You guys, we just want to confirm that neither of you can come in, right? Jess or Samantha? I know. Yeah, I know. Just a formality.
I mean, Tucker could come with me, but I can't guarantee you he'll be quiet.
Do we want to do that?
Yeah, and I'm in the same boat. My childcare fell apart. So if you want a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old there too.
Could drop them off with Mark.
Let's take the baby.
Yeah, I think, I mean, if you don't have an in-person quorum, if Abigail or Mika doesn't show up, maybe go through the other business, at least for discussion,
Yeah.
and give it a little more time.
How about just saying where we are, you know, so that anybody that is on
Yeah.
Zoom, if there are
Yep.
people watching.
There's nobody on Zoom, but if they watch the recording, they'll want to know what's going on.
Yeah, so officially, this is a welcome to the September 14th, 2022 Conservation Commission of Portsmouth. We do not have in-person quorum. It requires us to have 4 members in person. We have 2 virtual that couldn't come in, so we are not an official meeting to vote at this point. I left a message with one of the members, and I don't know, did you, and Lynn left a message with somebody else to hopefully maybe one of them will be able to come in. They did not notify us, so.
And the other thing is we are short people, volunteers for this commission, so.
Yeah, we're short just one right now officially, but we're also short one alternate, so. So I apologize. I don't know if you guys want to wait a few minutes and see if anybody responds to our request to come in, please, or.
Well, we can either wait a few minutes or wait a month.
Yeah, that's sort of your choice.
I'd recommend you wait a few minutes and hope that we can get somebody in here.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to just kind of do other business, things that don't require a vote at this point. And hope something happens. So we can't vote on the approval of minutes, which is the first item, but you had given some comments to Peter. And,
Yeah.
so I didn't
Just eelgrass was misspelled on page 6, line 4.
And Samantha or Jess, do you have any comments on the minutes?
I did not.
Okay, so we won't
Neither
vote on
did I.
that, but you have some changes. And so the next item that we could probably discuss at this point is just other business. We have a wetlands conditional use permit and a state wetland permit application. So we'll have to put those on hold for now. And the other business, the first item was sustainable land care outreach and ordinance update and discussion. And I can kind of take the lead on that one, just to let everybody know that we met on, let's see, September 31st as a subcommittee, and we had a presentation from, I forget her name, Diana, that is associated with Dover pesticide-free group and also with NOFA on some level, I guess. And she had volunteered to put together a website for us and presented that website. And so we couldn't really see it very well, but we all talked about it, and we're going to be spending some time over the next couple of months reviewing it and getting back to her. The other part of the land care meeting was about a brochure that Kate so nicely put together. Thank you, Kate. And this is great information, definitely well researched, and we really appreciate it. To avoid having to be in quorum for review, for comments on that, I talked to Kate and Peter and then also Lynn about maybe having a subcommittee of the subcommittee to review it and make some changes and get another draft out, and then have Kate put that together, and we'll send that out to the larger committee once we've had a draft go through another draft. So we talked about the audience of that, and it seemed that the audience was really going to be people that come to us for applications and just informational about what the regulations are for sustainable land care or associated with sustainable land care, and then also what are our recommendations and some background on that. So I don't know, Lynn, if you had anything to add on that at this point. We could have one more person review it with us and avoid quorum. So if somebody wants to start at this beginning stage, let me know, and you can help Lynn and I. That would be great. And then
I'd be happy, Barbara.
okay, yeah, we did. Okay, that would be great. Thanks, Samantha. I will send it to you. So, and then the other part of that was we were not officially scheduled, but I know that Kate had set aside, I think, the last Wednesday of every month, right, for us to meet again. I have a feeling that Ted's not going to be here at that point.
Right.
So I don't know from Jess and Samantha, Lynn, I know that you're not involved with it at this point, but if you guys wanted to meet then, or if we wanted to wait another month and have more of a draft brochure and maybe some more opportunity to think about the website. And if we do wait another month, I was looking at dates, and not everybody can attend all of the dates, or that date, which would be the end of November, I guess. So we were looking at maybe rescheduling that. And I'm trying to think what the dates were that were going to work.
Do like the first Wednesday in November, or like
Yeah,
third Wednesday?
Is this
in
for
October?
meeting or for?
for meeting, yeah, for that subcommittee meeting.
Okay.
First weekend in November, or the last weekend, not the last week in October, but first Wednesday in November. And what was the other one?
Yeah, it's November 2nd or October 19th, the
Okay.
two that I suggested. But I think if folks can meet on October 26th, go for it. Because I can do just a little bit of work in advance, and then you guys can run with it during the meeting.
Okay. So do people have a preference on that?
It would just be Sam, right?
I think it's just, Jess is on the committee too. the
Oh,
subcommittee.
this is the whole committee, sorry.
Yeah.
I was thinking of the,
Yeah, this is for the whole committee.
yep.
So, I'm sorry. So November 2nd, or what was the other suggestion?
It was the,
October 19th?
thank you, Peter.
I mean, I think I could make either one work, and I apologize that I missed the last meeting. So, but I think I could do either one. I think I have enough notice that I should be able to get childcare organized, so that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, what time do we do it at again? Is it the same, is it
3:30.
3:30? Yeah, I think either one I should be able to make work.
Want to start with October 19th, and then if Ted can't make that, then we'll go to the 2nd?
Okay.
Okay. So Kate, that's official. Yes.
I was going to head out. Should I request a postponement?
We could, sure, I look for, we can't
I don't know
motion
that you
it?
can request.
Oh,
I mean,
'cause you can't vote on it.
request but They can't vote on it.
I just wanted to make it official, that's all,
Yeah,
for your
I'm
minutes.
sorry.
Okay.
I could probably be there, but I couldn't be there for like 20 minutes.
Does that help you,
So-
Steve?
It's up to the applicant, but I think my husband can come home and I can come in. But it would still be a little bit.
What do you
Yeah,
want?
I've actually just committed to taking my son to hockey practice.
Okay.
Darn children.
Sorry.
20 minutes.
Yeah.
Jess,
Eric will
can you
stay.
still come down? Eric's going to stay.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Sure.
sorry, Steve.
I'm gonna
put you on for
call my
next month,
husband
Steve?
right now and tell him to come home. So it'll take
We'll
me a
just
little
postpone you
bit,
to
but
next
I'll
month.
get there as soon as I can.
Okay, thanks, Jess. Okay,
And then the other part of that, I thought, was that we were going to have a little bit of a discussion about some sort of sustainability requirement for either the ordinance or putting it in the site review or whatever.
okay.
So like the thing that I'm really concerned about is addressing alteration of carbon sequestration capability of the site and how it will be compensated.
And Allison, that you're mostly talking about tree cutting, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, mostly trees, but the thing is that
Yeah.
anytime you're moving massive amounts of green matter, you're losing carbon sequestration capability, so.
Yep. Yep. And that would be not just in the buffer, but like anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you know,
I think that'd
any
be
applications that come in front of us, so that at least we would, you know, be able to look at that and have that be a requirement.
Yeah.
So how does that work if you're looking at an application that's going to be doing something in the buffer, and that's why we're looking at them? And then they're going to do something outside the buffer, but if they weren't,
See, we really have no recourse for that right now, but we do have within the buffer, so that if they, you know, are clear cutting a forest to put in a parking lot, they need to have some sort of way of compensating for the loss of carbon sequestration.
So it sounds like you're talking about a zoning ordinance revision, and the way the city's structured right now, they have a land use committee that looks at zoning ordinance revision. So I think you'd have to get the commission on the same page on what you'd want to put forward, and then make a recommendation to that committee to look. I mean, you wouldn't have to come up with the language, you just have to come up with the goal,
So,
and then they would review it.
yeah, well, that's basically was the goal that I
Right.
said just now. But, yeah, I didn't know if there was some way to just put it into site review plans, so that they need to do that.
With the planning board, they adopt site review regs, so that would have to be a planning board decision to.
Well, however we could get it through, however you think it would be most workable.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just, if you're talking about the commission making a recommendation, it would have to be the commission
Unanimous
coming
for the
together
commission.
on a recommendation.
Sure.
And I don't know how you'd go about doing that, whether that be another subcommittee or what you'd.
We could just say at a regular meeting, is that what we want to, do we want to have them look at adding something to the ordinance that addresses alteration of carbon sequestration capability of a site and how it will be compensated?
Is this, I mean, we obviously have, you know, the buffer thing, right? We've got a role in that. I'm wondering about the climate groups and the climate and sustainability committees. Is this something they're looking at too? Because it,
Well-
what if it would be just as strong coming from that group, and it could be city-wide?
At this point in time, I don't believe that they are looking at those kind of things, because I am one of the people that's sort of assigned to looking at how we can beef up the ordinances. And they were looking more heavily at, like, building codes. And it's leaving the greenery out hanging, and I feel like someone needs to address it. And if you read our ordinance, it looks like it would fit right in. You know, that would be part of the conditional use permit application, is that they would, or part of the site plan review, is that there has to be some sort of sustainability statement that talks about addressing carbon sequestration capability. Whatever.
So how would you, well, I mean.
See, I'm
it's
not sure how the city
I guess
government works
it'd
and the
be really
best way to do
it'd be
this.
really helpful to see an ordinance where they've done that and how it actually works physically, because it's a pretty big thing to just say you have to address carbon sequestration without any details or understanding. So you need to know.
Well, there are methods, I have tons of literature on it, and how you can calculate the carbon sequestration of a given area.
Right, but they're going to be planting things, right? So what's the time frame that you're working within? And what's
Yes,
the-
but the thing is that if we're cutting down a 12-inch diameter tree, and you're not putting back a 12-inch diameter tree, you're putting in a 2.5 inch caliper tree, your carbon sequestration is like nothing.
But you have all the, what about grass and other shrubs and herbs, things like that?
It's nothing, and we should discourage people from planting grass, because it means that they have to mow it and fertilize
See,
it
I
and
guess
take care of it.
I'm just pointing out that this, it's complicated. And no, people don't understand this as well as you do.
But I have a lot of literature where it's,
I
where people
understand
have
that.
done
I'm
this
just saying,
before.
just to say, to do it, they're going to want that backup. Whoever's going to change the ordinances is going to need that backup. And typically what happens is they'll look into it and they'll look at other ordinances where they've done similar things, because usually we're not the first ones to do it.
Right.
And so I think that's where I'm getting at, is I think it needs a little discussion, whether it's at a meeting of the Conservation Commission or at a subcommittee meeting, to really be clear on the recommendations so that you get what you want at the end. Otherwise, if you just say, we need to address carbon sequestration, they're not going to know what to do with it. So I'm not saying you need to develop the ordinance, but I'm saying here are the key points that are important to think about when you develop an ordinance. And the Conservation Commission would get behind an ordinance that would change its review criteria, say, for carbon sequestration under these criteria or something like that. you know.
Well,
So
I have,
that
as
would
I
be-
said, I have all kinds of literature and from other municipalities that have done similar things. And there's so many of them that it's not like I can send people all the documents, you know what I mean?
No, I think you kind of, that's the kind of the background work that you need to do when you make the recommendation, is here's what
Okay.
specifically we're looking at.
Okay.
And, you know, that they could then craft into some kind of ordinance.
So I should pull all that information together and have the references cited for where I got everything? and-
Yeah, I don't know the best way to do it. That would be one way to do it. But I think summarizing the information and maybe saying, you know, here are some model ordinances you could look at, and we'd like to do something similar, you know, something like that. And then at least there's some background that they can use, because I think a lot of people are going to be not really understanding what they're being asked to do. And you'll probably get more traction if you give them a little more background.
I mean, it's as simple as if you're cutting down trees, you need to somehow compensate for it, be it, you know, putting up a solar parking cover or something.
Yeah. But then you get into the legal question of, we're back at, this is wetlands regulation, and can you require someone to put up solar panels for a wetland impact?
Well, but the thing is that we're talking about cutting trees down, which is also impacting the wetland.
Yeah, no, I get that. I'm just telling you what the review is going to include. You know, they're going to include if the city has the authority to make these regulations. That's going to be that's what they have to look at.
Peter, when we met with Tory Brooks, I thought someone was going to look into where the limits of that are within the state, like what kind of,
For green building, yeah.
oh, for green building, not for anything else.
Well, that's what we talked about. Was for
Okay.
green building.
Did I forget, did that come up?
We need an enabling ordinance, I mean, or what would you call it from the state that says
Legislation.
that we can,
I was going to ask, because had you seen anything in New Hampshire? I can't remember. I know you had talked about it, but
yeah, I have not seen anything in New Hampshire specifically, but I mean, I don't even know where to look.
Well, you know, it's pretty broad, the innovative land use statute. So it might be that you could come up with a way to protect the cutting down of trees, the calculation of carbon sequestration and all that would be what I think that people would need to look at and see whether that's a logical connection to the wetland protection piece, or whether you're taking it beyond that and making the connection between wetland protection and climate change mitigation. So that, you know, that's the kind of research that they're going to need to do. I'm certainly not saying it's not a good idea. I'm just saying there's a process that you got to, you know,
Right.
think about and get there. And the whole commission has to be on board if it's going that route. If it's something that the land use committee is going to take up, and then they're going to need, you know, some guidance. You know, this is all policy stuff at some level. Usually ordinance changes are policy and they're directed by the city council and then reviewed by the planning board. So usually the land use committee is taking up the stuff the city council puts priorities on. So it might be a recommendation to the city council that you're talking about to update the wetland regs to include carbon sequestration. And then after that statement, what does that mean, you know? And that to me seems like something the Conservation Commission as a whole would have to vote on before the commission could recommend that. But it
Is there a
seems like
better,
a path
is there a
forward.
better place to put it? If we're talking about protecting the
Well,
environment?
I think that that's the kind of thing that's going to come up in the climate action plan, and those kind of recommendations are going to come out of that. So I feel like it's almost better if you work under one big document and target things in there that have been vetted through that process, and then they go forward through that process, rather than the Sustainability Committee recommends these things, and the Conservation Commission recommends these things, and the City Council doesn't, they have a lot coming at them
Right.
already.
Right.
It's harder to manage, I think, than if
Okay.
it, comes under the umbrella of this is, to make positive climate action, and you might get more out of it that way.
Okay.
But
So do we do something now, though, like, to make sure that
I-
it's in there? Or you say, I think it'll come out of the,
I think that the Climate Action Plan is the place where a lot of these measures are going to be considered and recommended for moving forward. And it's going to give the community an opportunity to speak on. And again, the council is going to get more support, and the council is going to act on what the community wants. And so that might be a good way to go. You know,
Have we gotten anybody that's come back with a quote or anything?
We had, the RFP went out. We
Right.
had no responses. So we're sending it out again. We called 4 of the firms that we sent it out to, and they said, we are so busy. So many communities are doing climate action plans right now. It was in August, so it was a busy time.
Right.
And vacation time. And they gave us some feedback. We changed a couple things, but mainly they said that the proposal the RFP looks good. The dollar amount seems fine. We just didn't have the capacity. So we're going to send it out. We sent it to at least 20 firms, and that list, and other firms that we called one firm that wasn't on the list, and they knew about it. They made a choice not to bid on it. So there's other firms that are reviewing our purchasing department. So it wasn't that people didn't receive it, it was just a busy time. So,
and that'll be a public process? So during that public process of putting together the climate action plan, there's an opportunity to give this kind of input to make sure it's in
Yeah.
there? And
Yeah.
we would do that.
the Conservation Commission could do that as a Conservation Commission, and citizens could do it coming to meetings, but when you get it into the climate action plan, then you have a specific goal or objective in the climate action plan that could have all the background that you're talking about, could talk about what the ordinance looks like, could even go into the enabling legislation. It could, the more, we're trying to get a climate action plan that's as detailed as possible so that we don't come up with, we want to help reduce greenhouse gas impact.
No, it
That's
needs
what I
to be
was-
Very
measurable.
specific, so
Yes.
that,
Concern
and
too.
that's
Absolutely.
a specific one, but even though you're saying reduce carbon or improve carbon sequestration, it still needs more detail, and that detail has to fit in, like I said, other parameters, but state law is one of them.
So we could still do some research to be
Yeah,
ready.
I think it would be good to be ready and see what other communities are doing, and not just New Hampshire, but once you figure out what the model is that you like, then talk to people, who understand the New Hampshire enabling legislation component and whether that can fit in. My understanding on wetlands is it's pretty broad in terms of you can do a lot of things to protect the wetlands. I just don't know how far from wetland protection you can go, and it's not, it doesn't look like wetland protection anymore. So, wetland protection in itself can be a carbon sink.
Yeah, well, that's always been hard, is to only be dealing with basically the buffer
Yeah.
and the wetland, because we're talking about the environment.
Conservation land is another piece, protecting conservation land that has trees on it and putting some preservation on those trees somehow, or ensuring that it's always forested.
And that's leading right into the next topic.
And I was just double checking too with Lynn, when you or Sam, you guys did that initial research on regulations or ordinances, that didn't come up because you weren't really.
Yeah, I'd be curious what Sam thinks. I was going to ask that question too, right? So we just started thinking about is there any kind of updating to ordinances that we might want to look into around buffers? But it was specifically around the sustainable land care, and I guess I'm wondering, is there a way to kind of merge some of these concepts in with the Sustainable Land Care Committee? I think you'd probably need to use different language. It wouldn't necessarily be about carbon sequestration. It would be maybe just about protecting the vegetated buffer, right? Which,
It's just that I don't
strengthening
think
that
that's
language a little
always
bit.
possible, given the,
Because you want the offset piece. Yeah, right.
yeah, because, it's, we've been circumvented from even talking about a conditional use permit on something from our last meeting, and, they were saying it was a minimum impact, and they were cutting down a forest, basically. you know, and to me, that's not a minimum impact. So is there an accounting of all of the tree cover in the city?
Right.
There's a public land tree inventory. I don't know that there's of all the trees in the city, but not that I'm aware of specifically, on all private land.
Yeah, Dover just did like a citywide like tree plan. I wonder if that would be like another approach.
Yeah, I think they did their trees, municipal treescape kind of, but I don't know the details, yeah. It'd be worth looking into something like that. I mean, that would be a good
Yeah.
approach to get a good understanding of what we have, and then you could
Cambridge,
calculate that
Massachusetts
number.
has a really good,
Yeah. They always have great stuff.
they do.
Yeah, you always come back to that.
The dig helps. But one of the things that came out of like the conversation around the buffer ordinances around sustainable land care was that, you know, so there's like different small grants and things that are out there, like the ones through the Scottsdale Region Estuaries Partnership. So there could be an opportunity to apply for a little bit of funding to do both, maybe like a deep review of ordinances and some of that technical work, like hire a consultant, like a planning consultant to do it for us, and then maybe partner that with like some outreach work that, you know, there's Ted and others are really excited to do anyway. That would be a legit way to sort of kind of combine that work, and then you could actually get some help, because it gets really complicated really quickly.
Oh, yeah, I
and
know.
And I don't know if that's, like, conceptually, whether that's too many things to put underneath one umbrella, and maybe it is, but just to think about, there could be some additional resources to bring in to do some of the, like, the legwork so that we could have something comprehensive to bring to
Right,
either
but
city
it's
council or
it's
to the
also
planning
just
board
even
or
the grant
whatever.
writing, and I find that kind of like prohibitive for me anyway.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
And then for the accounting of trees too, there is the Mylar of, right? They have that for Portsmouth,
Mylar?
yeah, with the, looking at, from GIS, like looking above and seeing what the tree growth is below for mapping, which.
LiDAR?
LiDAR,
Oh.
thank you.
Well, LiDAR is topographic mapping, so it does sort out the trees so that it knows what it's looking at below the tree cover. I don't know that does it have a way to quantify what it's looking through?
It actually does, it has,
Okay.
there is a
Oh,
way.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, and there's a way to quantify that's being worked on anyway on how mature the tree is even.
It makes sense,
So
yeah.
for that, looking at the height of the tree and the type of tree. So,
Yeah, I've got all kinds of charts that talk about that.
yeah, and that would be where funding would come in handy to somebody to map that out if that becomes something that we need to
Right.
know.
Right.
We can look into that too. I mean, I don't know what we have in terms of tree cover mapping throughout the city specifically, so I can look into that and get a sense. I mean,
Well, I
that kind
think
of
that would
baseline
be
would be
important
important.
for our climate action plan too, is to have a basic understanding, because
Yep. Yeah, and a lot of communities have tree ordinances already in place,
Yep.
whether it's for carbon or just for aesthetics.
So it'd be awesome to have it be
Allison?
citywide.
Sorry, through your research, have you seen any like calculation worksheets for like if you cut down a 12-inch
yes.
caliber
Yes.
tree, you know,
Yes.
what do you need to plant to replace that in terms of carbon sequestration? I'm sure that's
No, I haven't seen that specifically. What I've seen is, and the thing is that it doesn't have to be something planted to me. To me, it can also
Okay.
be compensating by, like, doing a carport that's solar.
Yeah.
You know, something that is showing that you're going to reduce your carbon footprint by doing something. You know, if
Yes.
you're cutting down all those trees, you need to do something with.
Definitely. Yeah. If there was like, I'm sure it's out there somewhere is, you know,
I've seen all the I mean, there are ways to calculate exactly
Yeah.
what kind of carbon sequestration you're getting from a piece of land.
Yeah.
Considering
and then what
everything
you're
that's growing
losing
on
by
it.
cutting and how do you make that equal again,
Right,
whole
right.
again.
Yeah, no, I haven't
Yeah.
seen a chart that does that. Boy, that'd be real handy right now, if we had a.
Well, yeah,
chart
because
that did
that's,
that.
I feel like, exactly what should go into the
Right.
site review. It's like,
Right.
show us what you're cutting down, show us how you're making it whole again, either by more plantings and, like you said, some of the non-planting options too.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look. It's got to be somewhere. Someone's got to have done it, or can be easily put together.
Yeah. Sorry, Lynn, did you have something else? No. So the next steps would be, you're gonna,
Well, I've got tons of stuff, but it's just finding out what's going to be most important, like summarizing a model that I find and giving the references so others can look it up. It's a shame because I've got all the articles. I've got a library like you wouldn't believe about trees and environments and carbon sequestration and all those kind of things. If you all became members of the Portsmouth Climate Solutions, we have a Google Docs drive that has all kinds of folders in it, and all my documents are on there too, so.
so would those people work on this too?
We
or-
are working on it,
Yeah.
yeah. In fact, I have a meeting tonight, and this is going to go beyond that, beyond the agenda.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I think this is really important right now. So, and if the timing works, that we can get our ducks in a row for when the plan comes together or when they work.
Yeah, I think if the more it can be coordinated and put through that plan, then I think the next step is, the push to get the council to adopt these measures that are pushed in the climate action plan. To me, that seems like the logical way to move it forward. Then it can be done in multiple pieces at a time instead of one-offs here and there through different committees and different boards. It all comes through that. And it also has the community input, so you know what the community is on board with, which really helps the council because they're trying to make policy decisions about things and they don't want to do something that the community doesn't support. And if they're going to put money behind it, which they're going to have to on a lot of these or all these, then they're going to want to know that the people paying the taxes support spending that money on it. And that's the big push on the climate action plan, is getting a climate action plan that has really specific recommendations, that has the community support, that then the council can take that and say, look, the community wants this, they said they support it, we had all these meetings where they said they support it, we're going to have to increase the budget for these areas, or at least look at changes that we can make to make these things happen. And how do we do that? And the budget is going to be one of them.
Is there anything in the budget that says something about sustainability? Like, when you're budgeting things, are you looking at the sustainability aspects?
I don't have the purchasing manual, but that would be the finance department would have that, those criteria they look at.
Okay.
But that's another thing that could go in the climate action plan. That would be, prioritize sustainability in the budgeting process, or, acknowledge the fact that we're an eco-municipality from the beginning, so that the decisions you make are, and that's the kind of coordination we're going to do as staff to educate people about eco-municipality and how that can lead to better climate solutions, or at least moving forward with climate solutions. Because typically sustainability, thinking in those sort of systems, conditions, ways, will have a better outcome. But that's more the framework. We need the details too.
Sound good for now, Allison, or?
Oh, yeah, for sure. No, that's good. It was good to talk about it.
Yeah.
Then the other thing is the conservation lands update.
Yeah, which has a funding discussion on that too, because you had brought up a question about the CIP and the money in that we have $500,000 in the conservation lands update. On the
Well, so the
conservation land.
CIP last year had $500,000 that they pushed to this year. So this year will be the first, if the CIP adopts it, this will be the first year they did. So the commission should be aware of that that's where it stood at last year, but this CIP,
Do we need to supply any sort of justification? Or, like, talking about?
I think anything would help, anything, speaking to the council, or speaking as a commission, saying that you support this, going forward this year, just reiterating that it's something that's important to the Conservation Commission would be the way to address it, I think.
Yeah, I think it's important to climate action.
Right.
Okay, so do we want to do a letter again?
You could do a letter, someone could go speak to the council at the CIP process, or to the planning board at the CIP process. There's different stages that the CIP gets public input, and it could be a letter from the commission, just supporting that they keep the $500,000 in as is this year, and maybe some bullet points about why that's important. And that would be something that the commission could, do to keep make sure they're aware that you know that's in there and that you want to keep it in there. And the council still has the say. The planning board and council still decide where they go with things, but
Now, Ted was talking about some sort of a bonding process or something to be able to do it. I wasn't
yeah,
quite,
I'm not a finance person, but the way they finance big projects is they get bonds. So the council will vote to authorize the CIP, and then it has to get put into the budget. And when they do the budget, the big items become bond items, and the bonds have to be authorized. So there's a stepwise process. I think
okay, so just getting it
Budget
into the
might have a
CIP
certain amount
is
of
like
money
the
that-
first step.
getting the CIP is the first step, right? It doesn't put it in the budget. It puts it in the CIP, which is the planning for the budget, and it's only the capital planning. So all the other planning, it's like less than 2%, I think, of the budget. It's a small amount, but it's it's capital items. So buildings and vehicles and plans and reports also become capital items. But yeah, it's the first step.
Okay.
But, so I thought the bonds were more of, the bonds were a separate funding mechanism, though?
So the bonds is just how they fund, so the way they come up with the money. So the city has a tax, it knows it's going to receive this much in taxes. It's like a loan. The bond is like, you put out a bond and it pays for the project.
So when,
And then the taxes reimburse the bond. But when you bond something, then you're usually there's an interest component to it. So it's not the same amount as the bond amount. It's that
Right.
plus more.
because when municipalities do, like a town would do a town vote to do a bond to set aside money for conservation easements, like, $1 million.
Yep,
And
same thing.
Same thing, but it doesn't have to be in the CIP to
Well,
do the
no.
bond.
No, but Jessica.
Yay, Jessica.
No, but it goes from the CIP to the budget, and the budget's where the bonding stuff happens.
Right,
Stuff that's authorized in the budget then will be bonded to get that, to raise that money.
Okay.
But you
Raise
could-
that revenue.
Okay.
And I'm at the limit of my knowledge
Okay, sorry.
of stuff.
All right, so we're going to put this all on hold and
Yes.
thank you so much, Jess.
No problem.
Sorry. Okay, we're going back on the agenda. Do we have to do a motion to, for something now?
I don't think I need a motion other than to start, you're going to go back to the agenda and start at the beginning. I guess you're fine just to vote on what you need to vote on.
Okay,
So the
wanna-
minutes
wanna
first?
do a
So the
quick-
minutes.
Anybody want to do a motion to approve the minutes from August 10th, 2022?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from August 10th, 2022 with the one correction.
Okay, seconded?
I'll second.
Okay, great. Any discussion? No? All those in favor?
I'm just
Roll
going to
call?
abstain because I wasn't, is that a problem? Or should I, do I
Uh,
need to vote
that's
to
fine.
approve them?
It's fine.
Okay.
What do I wait for?
I wasn't here, so.
Okay. Roll
But
call?
it is a vote, though. So Jess, abstain.
I am abstaining.
Lynn,
Yes.
Allison,
Yes.
Barbara.
Yes, and,
Sam?
Oh, and Sam, sorry.
Yes.
Okay. So
Okay.
one abstain.
so the next item on the agenda is a wetland conditional use permit, new business, 124 Kensington Road. We need to postpone that to the next meeting?
No, the Kensington Road
Kensington,
is
they're
Oh, the
here.
Kensington Road's one here, I'm
Yep.
sorry, the Pickering.
Oh, yeah,
I
that's
forgot
postponed.
which one was Eric's. Let's postpone it.
Ouch.
Next item on the agenda, 124 Kensington Road. Go ahead.
Good afternoon.
Let me get your plan.
Thank you for coming.
You're welcome. I'm sorry. It took a while.
Well, I have to say, it's better than my client who sent me a text, and I was in depositions this morning. I was like, is there a meeting today? I'm like, yeah, it's 3:30. And they're like, oh, we won't be leaving Mary meeting till 4:30. So you did better than they did. So, and then I also asked him, I said, have you met with your butters yet? Oh, no, we forgot to do that. So it actually gave me time to call Peter Laughlin and talk to him about the project. So for the record, Eric Weinberg with Altus Engineering, representing Neil and Darlene Olet of the Neil and Darlene Olet Revocable Trust. Tax map 152, lot 20. It's 124 Kensington Street. We were before you, I believe, in July for a work session. And then following that work session, we did a site walk, and we made some minor revisions to the plans and submitted the application for this hearing. But in summary, we completed an existing condition survey of the entire lot, which is EX1. Mike Como mapped the wetlands and provided a function and values assessment of the impacts to the buffer. He concluded that the impact on this proposal on the wetland will be so small it will not be measurable. The lot's approximately 19,044 square feet, which exceeds the minimum lot size requirements in the area and exceeds the lot size for most of the lots on Kensington Street and in that entire neighborhood, with the exception of a couple parcels, including this one, that acquired land and got larger when the Sandersons were divvying up their land 10 years ago or so, and that's when, shortly after that is when Peter Laughlin purchased the large wetland remaining area. There's a large wetland system behind the home, and that most of that wetland is on Peter Laughlin's tree farm and is in conservation. The majority of this lot is either wetland or wetland buffer. There's 15,420 square feet of wetland and wetland buffer on the parcel, which is approximately 81% of the lot. So what we're proposing to do is raise the existing undersized detached garage, replace it with an attached garage, and since the finished floor of the house is about 4 feet higher than the surrounding grade, that the garage is going to be much lower and the house's access is higher, so we have I'd say a modest entry area that pulls the garage away from the house, and that makes access easier as well. But it allows you to have the stairs going up to that first level from both the front with that patio porch area as well as the access from the garage. Some of the changes that we had made was the hardscape walkways and driveway will all be constructed using permeable materials. We're not asking for any zoning relief because we meet all the setbacks, open space, lot coverage, and so forth. So as garage moves a little bit away from the wetland resource, and in that green hatched area is an area that we're adding to the natural buffer. We're adding about 760 square feet of natural plantings. In addition to the permeable surfaces along the edge of the house, the drip line will be constructed using stone drip edges, which allows the water to come off the roof, infiltrate where it can, and then if it doesn't, it slowly disperses onto the natural ground. And there was a conflict in our submittal materials and the plan. There will be approximately 59 square feet of additional effective impervious in the buffer area. And I think I had in my narrative that was just the opposite. There will be an improvement in the stormwater quality and reduced peaks of rate of runoff generated. And as I mentioned at the beginning, earlier this afternoon, I called Peter Laughlin, and he said that months ago, he had been talking with Neil and Darlene at a party. They had mentioned the plans, and he is in full support of the application. I'm out of words and trying to be brief. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from the commissioners?
Trees being cut down?
We're not intending to have any trees cut down. There's some shrubbery as you expand out, and there is a tree that's outside the buffer. Whoop. That's right in here, that's in the driveway, but that's outside the buffer, and that's an ornamental.
Okay.
But
And,
we're not proposing any specimen trees to be taken down in the, for the project.
okay, thank you.
Samantha, have any?
Samantha, do you have any questions? Nope. Oh, she had a raised hand, but no, I think that's a no.
Sorry, no.
Okay, thanks.
I did have a question. Oh, go ahead, Lynn.
I was just going to clarify the stormwater plan. You said it'll be a net improvement, and I'm assuming that's because of, you're now adding all this impermeable,
Right, so.
or this, you're removing the driveway, putting in this permeable surfaces, but is there any other
We're not.
treatment plans for the
There's no,
stormwater?
what I'll say, active
Yeah,
treatment. There's no bioretention area. There's no concentration of runoff. The runoff off the roof is going to go into a stone drip edge. And then in the front, it's going to go, off the roof and into the permeable surface. So there's no.
just the yard.
There's no,
basically.
yeah, there's no concentration of runoff where we would be able to, direct the runoff into a rain garden or something. It's actually, in our toolbox of stormwater management treatment devices, there's concentration of flow and then there's dispersion, and this is more of a dispersion.
Thank you. Then, too, runoff from the road, is that, I can't remember and can't really tell from the plan.
Grade drains back towards the road, so right now the driveway, it's not graded well, it ponds in the driveway a little bit, but it drains back towards the road to Kensington, and by being permeable, we're going to be reducing the runoff towards the street.
Okay. So a little bit on follow-up, just maintenance plan for the driveway and also the plantings, I think, because when, not so worried about these people, but if there's something written that can be put in the deed or whatever.
Certainly, they'll be there for a while, like we presume, but yeah, there's probably something that should be documented somewhere to remind them that this is a natural area and that it needs to remain natural, and the requirements of the stormwater management to vacuum sweep the permeable surfaces.
Right, no,
And that can be a condition that's put on the plan, and however you want to handle that.
yeah, and then kind of somewhere, I mean, we've asked other applicants to kind of just put it in the deed so that
Yeah, so it's
carries
memorialized.
forward. Yeah, no sanding and devacuuming and stuff like that would be great. Thanks. Any other questions or? No? Allison?
I wonder about, because these people are going to be there for a while, hopefully, but when they're not there, I'm just worried about we've asked previously for people to put up signs, I don't know what it was, 25 feet from the edge of wet or something, saying sensitive area, like they can't dump their lawn clippings or anything else in the wetland
I would be
area.
apprehensive, because it's not like it's a condominium to have signs in someone's backyard. They're trying to enjoy that natural scenery, but by having it documented in the deed, I think that suffices. But I do understand what you're saying, Allison, but when you're sitting in your backyard, that last thing they really want to look at. Well, maybe not the last, but it's up there.
Well, it can be small, off to the side, just a reminder.
sensitive area or something. Think they would go with that?
Natural area left undisturbed.
Well, it is in the regulations
Yeah.
that the applicant's supposed to notify where they're going to designate the edge of buffer, how they're going to do that.
They could come up with
I
a
mean-
tasteful
I mean,
wooden.
if you put a couple little signs on the back on trees, edge of
Yeah,
edge of
I
buffer,
guess we can do,
edge of wetland even. It was left open in the ordinance because everyone's so different and how far they already are into the wetland, but, just on a couple trees in that back area, so people are aware that it's actually a wetland resource. It's not something you'd even really see from the house. You'd have to be out there, the way the vegetation grows. They're little, usually they're little circular signs.
I get it.
Strategically hidden or something, so that if you have to be
Yeah.
out there,
Something subtle.
very subtle.
Yeah, we can do something like that.
Having been there, it is really nice and natural.
It just,
So,
like a 4x8 sheet of plywood, no.
skull and crossbones.
Wetland resource area would be fine.
Okay.
Great. Any other questions or comments? Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the conditional use permit for 124 Kensington Road based on the aforementioned stipulations.
There were
You can
two of them.
probably word them better than I can, so.
That there's signage that states that there's a wetland resource area, and the second was something added to the deed to help preserve the area,
Yeah. Maintenance plan for.
maintenance plan.
So can you be more clear on the note in the deed? Just so I can,
Oh, so, maintenance plan for plantings and pervious areas, I guess.
Sweeping the driveway, for example, and
Yeah.
no sanding of the driveway, if you want to give specifics,
Yeah, vacuum driveway.
and leaving the vegetation in the buffer area.
so maybe stating that the property is in a 100-foot wetland buffer and the stormwater, the porous driveway needs to be maintained through vacuuming, something like that.
Yeah, no sanding and, there's recommendations from UNH Stormwater Center, right?
Yeah, I
You
mean,
could-
we have in all our commercial sites, we have recommendations on how to maintain the stormwater devices, so we can, and I, for some reason, I thought
can
that
you
was
vacuum?
actually
Can you vacuum?
in the plans. Let me just,
Yeah.
It's pavers?
Oh, well, good point.
If it's pavers,
You're probably not
Not gonna
vacuuming
vacuum it,
pavers. I
right?
keep thinking of pervious pavement, but,
unless they do pervious pavement, but it says
It-
pavers.
pavers,
Yeah,
I did not
there's crushed
include
stone
that.
between them or something.
the maintenance
Couldn't vacuum
requirements
that.
on the plan, I can make sure that they get incorporated.
If you put it on there for the city council, then, the planning
Planning
board,
board.
excuse me, then that would cover it, I think.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
have crushed stone.
we
in
can
the
do
open,
that.
So they
Yeah.
can't vacuum
can't
it.
vacuum it, yeah.
But you can't really vacuum it, right? Or
No.
do they vacuum it?
They,
With crushed
there's
stone.
a variety, well, the pavers with the sand, you don't really vacuum, you pressure wash.
Pressure wash.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe put that on the plan for the planning board.
Okay.
They're so vague. Okay, so there's a motion. Has it been seconded?
Second.
And any discussion? Thank you for doing the site visit. That was really helpful.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Totally different perspective. Okay, all of those in
Roll call.
vote.
Roll call. Sam?
Yes.
Jess?
Yes.
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 Look at that.
The chair
Just
votes
think
yes.
of it.
Thanks
Everybody.
for waiting, so sorry.
Unanimous.
Thank you, no problem, I appreciate it, and I really understand, so I appreciate your bearing with us as well.
No problem.
Okay.
Yeah, for some reason, Barbara, I didn't get notified of that sidewalk. I thought they
didn't
must have
either.
withdrawn their
You didn't either?
application.
No, I never knew. I got the doodle poll, but I never got when it was actually scheduled for.
Oh, my. Should make sure Isaac doesn't have like two different lists or something of people.
I will follow up with Isaac.
It's too bad because there's no way of checking it either because it's all BCC'd. It's all blind copied. So,
Yeah, that doesn't need to be either, so, I mean, you guys are all, it's all public, so it
Yeah.
shouldn't be, so I'll talk to him about that.
yeah, and then maybe we can
Yeah,
double check.
then other people can have eyes on it.
Yeah,
Yep.
make sure. Okay, so we need to postpone the State Wetlands Bureau application due to the not having quorum at that time. Does anybody want to make a motion to postpone? Allison?
I'll make a motion that we postpone the wetlands application for, I don't remember the address,
41 Pickering?
41 Pickering,
Till the,
next
Second.
Conservation Commission meeting.
okay, thank you. Seconded?
I'll second.
Second.
Oh, we got Samantha, okay. And roll call vote?
Sam,
Yes.
Jess,
Yes.
Lynn,
Yes.
Allison,
Yes.
Barbara.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Okay, thank you. And then, I don't know if you missed too much of it in travel, Jess, but we had gone to other business a little bit with the sustainable land care part. Did you catch some of that?
I was listening even though my screen was off. I was trying to get organized to get here. So I heard the discussion about trees and if there's some sort of graph or document where applicants could show how they're offsetting what they're doing to the property. Then I kind of ran out after that part to get here, so.
Yeah, so Peter had said that this would be a great opportunity for us to give input on the climate action plan when it comes in, and so that it's kind of coming from the same direction. And come up with more specifics, I think.
And then the other thing was the letter to the council from the commission supporting the 500K in the budget, and then potentially showing up in person when they're ready to discuss the CIP to say that we support it.
You know, one way to do that would be just to authorize the chair to do that now, and then you'd be done.
Okay.
if you
Sounds
want.
good.
If you're okay with that, Barbara.
Sure, we need to come
Drafting
up
it?
with some bullet points. If I can get some help coming up with bullet points. Probably not from the city.
Yeah, you could. I mean, I think just if they give you the authority to write a letter in favor of keeping the 500,000 in there, then you can add to that how you want, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'll be glad to send you some bullet points.
Okay. Oh,
So
that'd be
should
great.
we vote on that, to send a letter?
Could
I think if you're going to send it as the full commission, it makes sense.
Yeah, go ahead.
Seems like a great idea. I don't totally get it, to be honest. So the 500K would be used for land conservation?
Yeah, so
Is there
the
project
capital
on it?
improvement plan is being developed. That's the document that talks about all the capital expenditures the city's going to make. And one of them was, last year, they wanted the council to authorize $500,000 every year to set aside for conservation acquisitions, to protect conservation lands throughout the city. The last year, they decided to move it a year because it was kind of new and out of the blue, and they were tight on their budget. So the thought is, since it's on this year, to make sure, they understand the commission wants to support that still.
And right now, the only way the Conservation Commission can protect land is sometimes we negotiate with the developer. But we get this change of use money, and there's not a lot of change of use happening in the city of Portsmouth, so that fund has hung at about $800,000, maybe slightly north of that for a long time, but $800,000 for the purchase of property in Portsmouth is a drop in the bucket, and it's not going to get us anywhere. And if we had a continuing supply of money, that would obviously be beneficial. There are a number of properties, I don't know if you were with us when we had looked at properties that were private, that were not part of the public lands assessment that we had done, but land that was private, that was heavily forested or could connect some open land together. We were looking at those properties, and we came up with a priority list
Cool.
for those properties.
So there's kind of a short list of ideas.
Yes.
Of sites.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah. So we want to do that, motion to give authority and,
I'll make a motion to give Barbara the authority to write a letter on our behalf to the city council in support of the $500,000 in the CIP towards lion conservation.
thank
I'll
you.
second.
Discussion? So I'll work with you and Peter?
Sure.
Okay. And then, what's the date that we have to do that by, or is there,
Um,
End of the month?
I don't
It's the
know.
30th of September that
It's
it's,
the end of the
I was
month,
going
right?
to say, end of the month.
okay.
Is it a letter or is it verbal remarks that you need?
We like to have both, right?
You
Or-
could do both. It's up to you guys.
yeah, we're hoping to have a letter, and then show up in person and say that you support it.
Kind of explain it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you want to take a vote?
Yep.
Samantha?
Yes.
Jess?
Yes?
Lynn?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes.
Barbara?
Yes.
Okay, unanimous.
Okay. So that takes care of the CIP.
Oh, I think I put that next one on, or maybe you did, but I know what it's about if you don't.
That's what I signed up for, right?
Yeah.
Okay, was there
That's
any-
why I put it on. So this, can I,
Yeah, go ahead.
so the New Hampshire Coastal Wetland Conservation Plan Workshop is something that I thought maybe other commissioners were interested in. Allison signed up for it. I think she's the only one I saw who signed up for it, but it does have multiple dates, so to avoid a quorum conflict, if people know now they want to sign up for it, you can tell me, but the dates are September 20th, September 30th, and October 4th. And so we just wanted to let people know about it, and if you want to sign up, just try to avoid having more than 3 people at any one date, and we'll be good.
And the other thing, though, Lynn, did you want to mention the Climate Summit?
Sure, I can do a little pitch for that too. And
Yeah, I don't think there's anything to do on this other than just announce it, and if people want, I think the link went out, but there's this page. And on the back, the dates are on the front, too.
Got it.
I'm part of the, the team that's putting that on, actually.
So you'll be there?
Yeah, I will be
All
there.
days, yeah.
And I guess I'll just say too that it's just like a 1-hour presentation. But there will be kind of an opportunity to do like a little more like technical assistance, they're calling it, if communities want to kind of like dig in and figure out what does this mean for me. And it sounds like you've already done a lot of land conservation prioritization here, but that's the sort of thing that could be a next step.
Well, it'd be a good time to do it, because we've kind of looked at all the properties and need to revisit that, I think.
Yeah, we have to go back.
Yeah, and you could kind of, think about what are the priorities and, kind of rank them in a way that's more customized for Portsmouth, for
Yeah.
example.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely what I think we need, could use help with. I think.
Yeah, if it's water resources, if it's wildlife, you might rank
Do
them
I
a little
need to
differently.
sign up, or if I check the box, can you do it?
That's great. Oh, I think you need to sign up.
Oh, okay.
It's
But
gonna
then,
be your
did
email.
everybody get the Climate Summit from the Coastal Adaptation Workshop? That's actually 3 days. There's 2 virtual days and then 1 that's virtual and in person. At least I think that's the way it is. Maybe it's just 2 days
Yeah,
and
it's like
2 days.
It's
2
over. It's like a
virtual.
day and a half basically,
Yeah.
and you can, two.
Yeah, it's
Two
always a
block-
great, always a great event. All the different things going on in the region.
Yeah, Peter's presented probably a few times.
I've presented a few times.
We're awarded an award, I
An
think, there
award.
one year. Climate champion.
Well, it is a good event, and last year, was it all remote? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're doing all the presentations remote, and then there's kind of an in-person workshop on, they're calling it transformational resilience. So it's a little bit more about just how to personally stay like motivated and hopeful, and how to kind of help groups stay motivated and hopeful. And will just be like a nice like networking kind of time.
So do we need to worry about quorum for that one?
I guess if 4 people go, but
These are like public events.
it's a
Yeah.
public event. Yeah, I don't know.
We
So
won't be
it's all-
talking to each other.
It's not like the other. I mean, you can talk to each other even socially. I think it's a coincidence that you'd all be there. Typically, 4 of you probably wouldn't be there, but if you are, it is a public event. It's not like the other thing that was happening was more this cohort that was going to work together, and
That
there
made
was
more
concern
sense.
that it seemed like, even that to me seemed like it should have been okay, but it kind of crossed the line a little bit from a legal standpoint, I guess. I don't think.
These are educational public events, which
Yeah.
I think
Yeah, I think
anybody
that's
should
fine.
be able
Yeah.
to attend.
Yeah, it's like if you all ended up at the same movie, it's not.
Yeah.
It's all going to be recorded and.
Yeah,
be
and even
records
this, I think the
everything.
workshop, we thought the workshop was probably more in-depth than not more in-depth, but more of a,
Just like, yeah, just like a 1 hour
thing
introduction,
together. So
really.
it won't really be much opportunity either there. So that's, probably doesn't matter which one you go to,
No.
Okay. All right.
if you want to go to the same one as Barbara or Allison. Kate.
No.
Which one are you going to, Allison?
I don't remember.
Okay.
Do you remember? I sent you the date.
Yeah, sorry.
That's all right.
So, well, on another workshop thing, there was the one that you had sent to me on the funding, stormwater-related funding. They're having another workshop. I don't know where it was. It wasn't at your place, right? It wasn't.
Well, I don't know. I don't know about it.
So, and I didn't know if there was, so it was looking at funding sources for your stormwater programs, kind of, or stormwater management within the city.
Oh, I do know about that. Like building community support for stormwater financing.
Yes.
Yeah, I can actually give you a little overview of that too, if you're interested. And there is, I think, going to be a group from Portsmouth participating. It looks like it's
That's what I was
Peter-
wondering.
Peter
Yeah.
Groats, am I getting his name right? The DPW Deputy Director?
Brian?
Brian.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. I got it all wrong.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, I had gone to that in the
thought so.
beginning, and then I thought it wasn't something that I, was really going to participate in.
Yeah.
Ultimately, so.
Yeah. So, and I thought maybe the DPW, from the DPW would be going, and I didn't know if there's,
Yeah, which is exciting.
Yep.
I think that's the way it's, and the program is really geared towards like staff, kind of city engineers
Yeah.
who maybe have all the technical know-how, but maybe don't have the kind of the public engagement skills. The way it's set up, though, is we're hoping to have kind of either pairs or small groups from each municipality participate. So it's possible that Brian might need a partner. And it actually is nice to have a little bit of diversity in that little, municipal team that's participating. So if there was somebody interested, I could keep my eyes sort of peeled to see if Brian does need a
What's
partner.
the date on that?
It's a whole 5-month program, actually.
Oh.
So it's going to be kind of 2 virtual sessions in October, November, and then January and February. And there's actually a little bit of kind of field work in between, kind of interviewing people to kind of understand their views on stormwater and stormwater financing to help you put together a public engagement plan around stormwater financing specifically. So there's some parallels, it seems like, with the land care to some extent. And then, of course, the public engagement skills are applicable to so many different topics, right? Capital improvement projects, sustainable land care. Yeah, so that's what that is.
yeah, it's something that Abigail from Prep really wanted to do for years and years.
Yeah.
And so and I had attended something similar down in Massachusetts many years ago, and it's really good.
Good.
But it is a lot of hands-on kind of exercises and outreach and communication and how to communicate with your with your residents to get support and stuff like that. Yeah, should be good. So, okay, and then I just had one other thing on the conservation lands, if there's an update that needs to be given on that? Or should we go into executive session at some point to get,
I don't have an update right now.
okay.
Yep.
But nothing's moving forward at this point, so
Not that
kind
I
of
know
want to
of. No,
revisit.
I think we're in good. I think we need to go back and reprioritize. And those other ones might come back up again, but they're kind of on the back burner, it seems like, from what our discussions have been.
Which is,
So do we need a separate meeting to discuss the conservation lands and all that again?
to reprioritize or wait until, I mean, we don't really want to wait too long.
It's up to you guys. I mean,
No, Yeah, I'm not sure what,
We would need to do some background work to see which,
our number one was the Chase Home property, and I don't know what happened with that. I mean, I think that they weren't agreeable with the city.
well, we weren't talking about it
Oh, okay,
in a public meeting just because it was the preference of the property owners, so.
okay.
It was the executive, or you guys could have a
I
second.
think there's a couple property owners that didn't want it to be public, that we were talking to them, and I think that's typically the case with conservation projects, so, yeah, I think you would have to have a non-public. I think what you could do in the public side is talk about what properties we talked about the open space plan, we came up with 5 from the open space plan, and then from there, we kind of had, once we started engaging with the property owners, we made it non-public, so maybe that's the process to do, is have a meeting and then decide if we need to follow up with the property owners. If we can come up with another list of properties and follow up with them. It seems like all the conservation land work I've been doing, or that's like lands that have gotten protected, they often come as an ad hoc thing. The person decides they want to do it. It's rare that you talk to them and they say, oh yeah, I would like to put that in conservation. But it's worth the effort. You might come up with a property that will really work, and the property owners, you hit it at the right time and it works. So I think it's worth doing.
Peter, I know you and I were supposed to touch base on one, and I never did anything
I did.
further.
I heard back. So that
Okay.
one also is, on
Okay.
hold basically.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so cart before the horse kind of thing? Public, non-public is.
I think we could do a public with the open space plan and look at the properties that are there. And then when it comes to negotiating with the property owner, I think you usually do it in non-public.
Okay.
But,
If it
so do we
depends on the
really
property.
need to look them all over again, or do we?
Not
I mean, I thought
necessarily.
there were quite a few on the list.
So that's a non-public part I'm thinking is we need to get an update, because I don't know if everybody knows what hasn't worked out, I think.
Yeah, so maybe it is a non-public just to go over all that.
Yeah.
Yep, that's a good idea. Yep.
And then go probably look at the plan again. Oh, sorry, those are a pain. But we could just have it at the end of a meeting, right?
I was gonna say, couldn't that be, like, if our agenda's not too long next month, be the end of next month's meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, thanks, Peter, sorry. Okay, that was,
Yeah, you could put it as an other business item that you take up and keep postponing it if your meetings are long, and decide
okay,
that you have enough time. And we'll just try to get ready for it for next month.
okay.
But good, I'm just thinking about that issue a little bit. I think what Hampton is doing is the Hampton Conservation Commission is actually doing kind of a mailing to like 70 properties that they are
Yep.
interested in, like sort of a broad sweep.
Yep.
And they may even do a little bit of some sort of a workshop-y thing to kind of dig into like, what does that actually mean when we say we would buy that piece of marsh you can't develop anyway? Just explore it further.
Yeah,
Rather
and
than just prioritizing 2 or 5 or whatever.
Hampton's been a really good example to follow too, because, they totally different
Yeah,
situation
it's
over
different,
there,
yeah.
but they have done a lot of research on, prioritizing among themselves, and even coming up with, basically how much properties are worth. It's pretty good. So, okay. Does anybody else have any other business? No? I just had one thing to mention is that I don't know if everybody noticed that there was this correspondence at the beginning of the packet, and it was a little confusing, I think. But I had asked Isaac to include correspondence from the state. We don't have correspondence from the planning board at all, right? It's just going to be the state, like. any
Typically, it's the state,
Yeah,
DES usually.
We just have to watch.
Yeah, just put it at the end of the packet instead of the beginning.
Yeah, should we suggest that?
Yep.
And then, but I don't know if anybody read the correspondence going back and forth on the hospital, on the parking lot.
Yep,
They did follow through with some of the stuff that we suggested,
yes.
which is good.
Yeah, I thought so too.
But it's kind of good to look at, to kind of learn about what recommendations we make to the state and then what they can do with it.
Right.
It sort of helps.
Right.
On that hospital note, maybe Friday. The planning board reviewed their application for site review because they didn't have a wetland conditional use permit. But the recommendation that the Conservation Commission made got into that review so that they have an independent wetland scientist. We didn't hire, they do a third-party wetland scientist review, and so we set that up, and Rockingham County Conservation District is sending a wetland scientist out there to meet up with the wetland scientist who did the delineation, so they can compare and make sure it's accurate. So if it goes over, then it would come back for a conditional use permit.
Okay, great. Thanks, Peter.
Yep.
Thanks, Allison. On that. Okay, if there's no other business, does anybody want to make a motion?
I'll
to
make a
adjourn?
motion that we adjourn.
I'll second.
And all those in favor? We don't have to do a roll call, right?
You don't have to do a roll call for adjournment. Yep.
Aye.
Bye, Samantha.